Duke jumping back in to showing some love on Super. He says, is Boss Fangio's defense really cracked up to be what it is? I can't wrap my head around what Vic does defense-wise. So, Nick, if you were to – this would be fun. This is a fun topic. Without going too far down the rabbit hole, if you were to sum up, put it this way. I think most Broncos fans are pretty well educated and knowledgeable on what Wade Phillips' defense was. How would you categorize the difference between Wade and Fangio's scheme on all levels, from pass rush to run fits to back-end coverage, et cetera?
I would say that it's much more coverage-based than pass rush-based. You're going to see a much more versatility and demands from the entire back seven. So you need to have some coverage ability from not just the cornerbacks, which was much more reliant for the Wade Phillips defense, but safeties especially. They have to wear so many hats, and the linebackers. And rather than sending a lot of blitzers, Vic Fangio is kind of a little bit more of a methodical in regards to the pass rush. Granted, Alexander Johnson, not leaving him in space last year is probably a good decision. If he's on the field in a pass down, sending him in a blitz is probably more effective than putting him in on an island against a tight end or a running back, so to speak. So he does a good job of putting guys in the best spot, but really it's just that he did put so much on the quarterback's plate as far as what they have to read. There's a lot of match quarters going on. So the opposite sides of the field, it's complicated. There's a whole book on it actually that I have ordered here. But
what's the name of the book?
It's a match quarters defense.
Okay.
It's it's very, very complicated. And gosh, there are people better than me that could go into long about this than I am. I'm more of a talent evaluator but again, it puts the most on the quarterback. And Kyle Shanahan, I think it was, said that the Vic Fangio defense is the hardest he goes against. And also Vic Fangio put so much on the defense from a mental side of football. Now, right. Wade Phillips, that's something that he let those guys go out there and play, not much thinking, just go attack, here's your role. Vic Fangio is much more, he'll switch up the defense one week to another based on the opponent, much more of Bill Belichick style. So Guys have to play their role. And one of the best things, it's so simple. These complicated defense, but one of my favorite things is the Vic Fangio defense that we saw last year. The Broncos gave up yards in chunks, but once it got into the red zone, things really compressed. So if you're not giving up chunk yardage plays, if you're making them march it down the field and then they run out of steam in the red zone and get a 3, that's a win. That's a win in today's NFL. So that's something that, that's a big reason he keeps hyping Michael Ojemudia, Broncos 3rd-round pick. Got some work to do, but he does not get beat over the top. He just doesn't. So that's something that I really like about this defense, not giving up the big play and making them earn every single point they get by really just getting, I guess, lethal in the red zone.
Two things that jump out to me, and it's a good reminder for fans, is you often saw Vic Fangio talk about this after the fact, like when he'd be up at the podium, the Broncos would get home on a blitz or something, or maybe they'd have a productive game in the blitz department, and he'd say, hey, you guys didn't think I liked the blitz, right? Or that I had that in me. He doesn't traditionally like to blitz. He likes to get home with the down linemen and the edge guys, 4 rushers, because, as Nick said, it's more of a coverage focus. He likes to put his numbers or his strength in coverage and hope that guys can win. One guy can slip through, a lot of stunts, a lot of twists and whatnot. The other thing that jumps out, Nick, to what you said is because it puts so much of a mental demand on players, it does take a little bit more time for everything to click overall. So if you look at his last 2 stops, Fangio from San Fran, in San Fran, he was able to hit the ground running quite a bit quicker because so many of the personnel pieces were already in place. But let's just say in Chicago, for example, when he arrived with John Fox in 2015, the cupboards were personnel-wise pretty dadgum bare, and no pun intended there. He had to bide his time, do his thing, bide his time, put the pieces in place. It took a good 3 years before it really started becoming potent, and then you get who was it? Well, of course, Khalil Mack, but there was one Roquan in 2018, and then everything just clicks. So that's why it takes a little time. And as Nick already talked about in a previous segment on today's podcast, there was a reason why the Broncos got out to a slow start defensively last year. No takeaways, no sacks until week 4. A lot of that has to do with how demanding that scheme is.
And also, the big thing, the reason it makes quarterbacks so, I guess, difficult for them is there's a lot of split field coverage. So what's going on one side of the field is not exactly what's going on the other side of the field. So a quarterback will read man coverage on one side and think, oh, man coverage, I should have player X open on the other side. Turn, guess what? It's zone. And he'll throw it right into the defender's hands. So really, quarterbacks, they put so much on their plates, and they have to be able to analyze not just quickly, but throughout the entire play.